Before I begin, allow me to take a moment to pay a debt of gratitude and a debt of honor on behalf of people all across this country for the life and ministry of one of the greatest Americans of the past century, the Reverend Billy Graham. Like so many of you, I was saddened to learn last week that Billy Graham had passed away. He was a man of towering faith, whose example, whose ministry for the gospel, and his matchless voice inspired our nation and the world. As President Trump has said, in his words, Billy's unshakable belief in the power of God's word to transform hearts gave hope to all who listened to his simple message. And it did. And his message was simple and consistent throughout his life, that God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son. Billy Graham preached his first sermon more than 80 years ago, and over the course of his life, he addressed more than 77 million people in crusades in more than 185 countries. Now, one of those crusades took place in Indianapolis, Indiana in 1999, and I'll never forget that night. I put my faith in Jesus Christ as a young man in college in 1978. But when our kids came along, Karen and I wanted our young family to hear Billy Graham. So we took our children to the RCA Dome in Indianapolis. Michael was 8, Charlotte was 6, and Audrey was 4. Seated high above the arena, we looked down and watched as Reverend Graham gave that stirring presentation of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And when Just As I Am started to play, and thousands began to make their way down to the floor of the arena, our 8-year-old boy headed down. And soon his 6-year-old sister followed right after him. And my wife, holding our youngest, turned to me and said, "Go after them." And when I caught up with our kids, my son looked up at me with those big brown eyes and said, "Dad, I want to go down." And so we went. We prayed with a volunteer pastor on the floor that night. Well, that little girl is now a writer working in Los Angeles, and that little boy is now a lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. And I'll always believe in my heart of hearts that that night, that walk, and that prayer, just like it did for millions of Americans, made a lasting difference in their lives. Now, tomorrow, Billy Graham will lie in honor in the United States Capitol Rotunda, an honor only afforded to 33 Americans throughout our nation's history. And this Friday, President Trump and I will travel to North Carolina for his funeral. We'll join his family. We'll pay tribute to his life and legacy. But we'll also join with the hearts of millions around this country and around the world who will say with my small family, "Thank you, Billy Graham, and God bless you."